Welcome in, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started here. Jen's closing the doors for us. Appreciate you guys joining us in the cloud communications track. Up here with me today is Scott Forbush, channel chief at Nextiva. He helps partners like ATC go to market globally with Nextiva. He'll be talking today about kind of the future of customer experience, a little bit of artificial intelligence. Nextiva, if you don't know, and I won't take his thunder, but a leader in the unified communications and contact center industries. I'm Buddy Holmeyer. I haven't gotten a chance to speak to all of you guys yet. I would love to this afternoon when we have some networking later on. I'm a Delta team consultant here at ATC. In my role, I help organizations land on the exact right solution for their business needs. In that, we guide you through ATC's proven Delta process. In our Delta process, we start with initial discovery, and I stand by the IT leader of the organization all the way through solution implementation before we pass it off to ATC's super support team, who supports the solution that we implement throughout the life of that contract. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Scott, who's going to chat with us today. Thank you for joining. Let's clap, give it up for him.
A huge round of applause. Thank you, buddy. He nailed it, right? You know, before I get started in these, I always like to get to know the audience a little bit. So if you don't mind, anybody adverse to being picked on? It's always a good question. My name's Scott. Kendall? Kendall, great to meet you. How's the show been for you, Kendall?
Oh, it's been pretty good, pretty informative.
Yeah? Yeah, who do you work for?
ProScan Imaging.
ProScan Imaging?
Yeah.
And what do you do for them?
Director of Product.
Director of Product. What exactly does that mean?
So that is the management of our in-house or developed product, our radiology information system, as well as all the clinical applications that the radiologists use. So that's any AI tool that they utilize or any future development or customer engagement.
Okay, so you get to deal with any of the rogue IT that happens out there?
No, not so much.
Oh, that's good. So, what do you do for fun?
For fun, I mainly hang with my family, sporting events, golf.
Ooh, hold on. He's speaking my love language. The man said golf. We're going somewhere with this, I promise, Kendall. So golf, where do you like to play?
I like to play on Forbush or, anywhere pretty much that's available that my friends hook me up with.
Yeah, and what clubs do you swing?
I swing openings. I am 6'7", so I need new clubs.
Oh, really? Yeah, I think we've got a sales contest coming up here for Kendall. If you were to go buy a new set of clubs, where would you start looking?
Probably Galaxy Golf.
Galaxy Golf?
Yeah.
So what's going to drive your decision when you go looking for a new set of clubs?
Mainly the feel. Like if it's the right feel, I'm in the right position, is it the right length for me? Do I got a good grip on it? What is the technology in the club itself is going to make me drive the ball farther or get me a little bit more accurate?
Yeah, I'm assuming that you're going to be reading reviews on that sort of thing.
Reading reviews, giving people's feedback.
Yeah, so Golf Galaxy is fantastic. I love those guys. I go there and I go to PGA Superstore all the time. Oftentimes I'm going in there, though, I'm looking for advice, right? Looking for help. And especially, you said you're 6'7".
Yeah.
You're going to need some help getting fitted, right?
For sure.
So why Golf Galaxy versus just ordering them online?
Just based on reviews, based on feedback.
Yeah, getting some help from those guys, maybe?
Like that in-person touch.
Right, yeah, that human connection, right? It's important for us to start thinking about these things. And the reason I'm asking Kendall all of these questions is, as businesses, we're collecting data all the time, right? So how do I best know how to serve Kendall and his wants and needs? And it is powering that human connection. And we talk a lot about CX and AI. And the whole purpose of having these technologies is so that we can better service people in person, right? So when we talk about powering the human connection, we're going to talk about CX and business outcomes. Now, CX and AI get thrown out a ton. How many times have you guys heard that here at the show? Too many? Probably true. When I say CX, buddy, what does CX mean to you? I'll give you a hint, it's right on the screen.
Customer experience
Very good.
is as important as product and service.
It is as important as product and service. It's interesting when we talk about CX and AI and contact center and all those buzzwords, it means something different to everybody out there. So for the context of this discussion, we're going to be talking about customer experience, the journey of going through. So walking Kendall through that first swing with those clubs and going, man, you know what, these are just not the right fit, to all the way through the end of the journey to where he is just smoking them down the middle of the fairway, right? Kendall's gonna go through a journey in doing that. And at the end of that journey, he's gonna walk away with an experience, his customer experience. And I guarantee when you smoke it down the middle of the fairway, someone's gonna go, where'd you get those clubs? How was your experience? Tell me about it, right? And if he has an awful experience with Golf Galaxy, he's going to tell them just the opposite, right? So what we do at Nextiva, we were born and bred in the voice world. It is no longer voice anymore. Like when we talk about different channels for communication, it is everything. Like Buddy and I were just talking. Like he was telling me, he's straight out of college. He's crushing it in this new field. I've been doing this for longer than Buddy's been alive, right? And the contact center and the way that we would do customer experience back in the day, it was really one thing. It was a voice call. You pick up the phone and you call somebody. And then we're like, holy smokes, we can have these multi-channels and we can put faxes into the call center and we can do emails, and then chat started coming up. And it's just gotten more and more and more and more complex in how we communicate back and forth between the consumer and the business. So you're gonna hear me say quite a bit about how customer experience is as important, if not more so, than the product itself in a lot of cases. Because again, you can go and buy the product, you can buy the best product, but if you don't have the right service behind it, you're probably not gonna return back to that customer. In today's business world, you can have somebody that starts up a business out of their garage, 20,000 miles from here, and they will compete with local businesses right here in Cincinnati. Same thing, businesses right here in Cincinnati can now compete globally, everywhere. But it's all based off of the customer experience that they can deliver to their prospects and customers. So you think about that, it's a seismic shift in going from the local retailer all the way over to you can buy from anyone, anywhere, anytime. Even something as simple as when we talk about customer experience, I go to a barber called Barber Co. Is it the closest to my home? No, it is not. But he knew the answer to that one. He's immediately shaking his head no. I can tell it's not. Why do I go to Barber Co. instead of the one right by my house? Anyone venture to guess? Exactly. The low maintenance cut. It's incredibly convenient for me. They've got an app that I can go on and schedule all my times. I can prepay for everything. I can select Solomon, who's my barber, and it will remind me before I go out because I guarantee I will forget. But I've got that customer experience and that customer engagement from something as simple as a barbershop. And that's the technology that we're talking about today where a lot of this stuff was developed on a very grand enterprise scale, but now it's available to everybody no matter what, the size of their business. My favorite thing about these type of slides is the stats. It's a fun fact, 58% of all stats on a PowerPoint slide are made up, including the one I just gave you, right? But it gives us good directional information. When you look at this, these are three very highly touted firms. And they have done extensive research on the customer experience and the customer journey. The customer experience, when Forrester went out and started talking to consumers, 50% were saying they are making their buying decisions based off of the ease of doing business with somebody. So when we talk about customer experience, it's all about ease. I've been on the road since Monday, and I've already ordered probably 3 things from Amazon that I know will be waiting for me when I get home. Who else has ordered something from Amazon this week? Okay? How many people did the one swipe to purchase? Right? Just about everybody. Kendall, what's your expectation of that order? Like, how soon do you expect to receive that? Right. Like, sometimes it's same day even, right? Like, we now have this unrealistic expectation in our head. And as consumers, we don't necessarily compare one competitor against their direct competitor. We're comparing experience against experience, right? So I'm thinking, man, it is so easy to buy stuff from Amazon. Is it as easy to transact stuff with Golf Galaxy? Not really buying the same stuff. Like, I'm not going to get golf clubs off of Amazon, although you could. But I'm comparing that experience. And that's what every one of these analysts have come back with, is we as businesses, we have to compete with the best companies out there, not our best competitors, because of the expectations are set so high. So put yourself in the shoes of the C-suite, okay? So if you are a CEO, a CRO, a CMO, and you are having to drive your business in the right direction, how are you making these decisions when it comes to the customer experience? The massive shift is coming up primarily because there is a ton of tech burden out there. Anybody want to give me a definition of tech burden? Anyone want to take a swing at it? Tech debt? How would you define tech debt? Perfect. That's exactly right. And you think about the old architecture. So many people are still working in siloed data infrastructure. As a matter of fact, when you look at the number of applications that any one business has that contains some element of data in it, on average, it's 15 to 25 applications that house some form of data, okay? Now, that is structured data. It is a database that we have said, this is the field for this, and here's the answer for that. And it is sortable, it is reportable, and that sort of thing. Kendall and I had a nice conversation at the beginning of this, though, right? I learned some things about Kendall that don't fit into a structured data field. But I would argue are very important to creating a good customer experience for you. Would you guys agree with that? Unstructured data versus structured data. The tech burden here is that older architecture does not allow for communication between all of these applications so that they can talk to each other, so that we can empower and enable employees. And we're not talking about just call center agents anymore. We're talking about everybody within the organization. We need to be able to empower and enable them with all of the pertinent information to give Kendall the best experience that he can so that he will A, buy from us the first time, and then B, buy again. The competitive market pressure is insane on this sort of thing. At the C level, they're looking at that and saying, okay, what is the lifetime value of one customer? Right? If Buddy's gonna come in and buy a set of clubs, he's 23 years old, was it? You got a lot of years of golfing left. You're gonna buy a lot more stuff. I buy a lot of golf balls because I lose them all the time, right? I'm a great customer for these guys. But that lifetime value is calculated and has to be taken into consideration when you're considering your tech stack. When you think about 15 to 25 disparate systems that all speak different languages, they're all coded differently, how do you get any semblance of truth out of all of that? Right? These are things that we need to take a look at. No surprise, like this isn't anything new, but anytime you sit in a board meeting, the board members are looking at the C-suite and they're saying, we need you to produce more with less, right? I don't know if, has anybody had the privilege of sitting in a board meeting where they, right? Have you ever had a board member say, unlimited resources and just do what you want?
Yeah, I have to say, throw whatever it takes at it. And it's like,
Yeah, they're gonna come back and say, what did you do?
I'll build a space station that'll run your app.
What's that?
I'll build a space station that'll run your app.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. But they are coming back, and so for the C-suites, they are always challenged with being able to produce more with either the existing infrastructure that they've got or less than what they have today. And that's just the way it's going to be. And so that needs to be taken into consideration. And so there's pros and cons here. When we start talking about moving to the cloud, you know, the cloud adoption has been going on for a long time. You know, I don't know that Buddy's going to remember having all the server stacks back in the broom closet that, you know, they're running the old NT servers and that sort of thing. You're nodding your head, so I think that you're like me, you've seen that, right? People started moving away from that. But when cloud adoption started taking place, people didn't just flip a switch and get rid of every server application they've got and move everything to the cloud immediately. What they did is they started piece parting little bits and pieces here, and they go, you know what? We're gonna take accounting. We're gonna take accounting and we're gonna put that in the cloud and test it out. Like, you know, for those of us that have been doing this for a while, the number one concern was security. Like, I don't know if I can take all this stuff out of my broom closet that is super secure and go put it out in the cloud, wherever that is, and feel good about it. But as more and more adoption was taking place, what was happening is we started siloing into all these different applications, right? You know, we joke, you know, the old iPhone saying there's an app for that, right? And then it's an app and an app and an app and an app, which was great. So then you take your CRM and you put it out there. You take your marketing and you put it into a different app. You take your ERP and you put it into a different app. It's great to move it out to the cloud, but now all we've done is we've taken the problem of a bunch of different systems internally that don't talk to each other and sent them out to the cloud that still don't talk to each other, right? So that's the downfall of it. The good part is that we're moving out to the cloud. A lot of these newer applications are open source, and so you can start communicating with one another. But then you have many to many in a case like that, right? So you've got 15 different applications on the low end, and you have to have 15 of them talking to 15 others, and when you start connecting the dots, that's a lot of different conversations. And it becomes very difficult for these non-integrated cloud applications to make sense of anything. So the C-suites are reevaluating their decision for framework. And what they're talking about doing is avoiding, you know, we call it the random acts of technology, or ghost IT, or some of these other things. There's a company I worked for prior to Nextiva here that we had a homegrown CRM that was purpose-built for our business. It's actually a partner of ATC's, as a matter of fact. And the business model was so unique that nothing really worked. HubSpot didn't quite fit, Salesforce didn't quite fit, and so they had built their own CRM. Over time, and millions of dollars later, we went, you know what, it's time to go to Salesforce, okay? So we make the jump over to Salesforce. Sabiona was the the name of the other CRM. Well, again, it wasn't just a flip the switch and move it over. It was, okay, we're gonna launch Salesforce, we're gonna push all the data in here and see what happens. Well, Salesforce doesn't operate exactly the same way as Saviona did. And so we have an operations team that went, you know what? We're not capturing little bits and pieces of data, so we're going to go and subscribe to Smartsheets. And this was a conversation in a lunchroom with a bunch of people sitting around. IT was nowhere to be found, but they went ahead and they did it. And they went for a year, taking information that was supposed to be fed into Salesforce, and they were just plunking it into Smartsheets. Well, guess what? When it came time for us to turn off the switch to the old CRM, we didn't have all the data in Salesforce because we didn't have a platform in the middle that was translating between the two. And it was all the other applications that we had as well. So C-suite leaders, when they're thinking about this, they are absolutely trying to avoid those random acts of technology or the rogue IT. Moving to a platform-based approach is what the next phase is looking like. And it's not specifically to get rid of all the 15 to 25 different applications, but be that translator in the middle. What we do at Nextiva is we pull all of this disparate information, all the disparate data, and create one single source of truth. Those of you that have worked out of multiple databases, you have 1 + 1 = 3 over here, 1 + 1 = 7 over here. Same formula, should have the same answer, but you don't have a single source of truth, right? What you can do with a middle platform like this is everything comes in and now you get to define which one is it. Well, it was neither of those, right? But then you can identify it because now you've got mismatched data, but it now calls it out. Because you're gonna have people going into one database, getting one answer and giving it to your customer, somebody else going into a different database, getting a different answer, and potentially, unfortunately, giving it to the same customer. Poor customer experience. Creating that single source of truth for both structured and unstructured data is the key going forward. So what I've been talking about a lot has been the structured data, all these systems coming together that have fields. Unstructured data is actually producing 80 to 90% of the data now. And it's through the conversations that we have. It's through the interactions we have. It's through the surveys that we have, through the natural language of having conversation, whether that's through a chat, an email, social media. People are posting, like they're tagging your company, at ATC, bang, 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 loved the tech shows, absolutely fantastic, right? Not only capturing that information in a free field, but making it actionable and presents back to whoever it is within the organization needs that information at that time. So that you can now have real-time actionable business outcomes. And when we talk about the old school contact center, everybody's talked about this ad nauseum. What's the worst thing in the world? You call in, they say, give me all your information, buddy, and you give it to them. And they're like, oh, you know what? I'm not the right person for you. Let me swing you over to somebody else. And then what happens? What's your name? Right. All that information. And if Kendall were to call in over to Golf Galaxy and say, hey, I need to talk to somebody about these clubs. And like, oh, hold on, that's not us. Let me swing you over. And the answer instead is, hey, Kendall, you know what? Glad you called in. We see that you came in, 2 weeks ago for your fitting. We got the extended shafts for you, this sort of thing. And it's, the stiff flex because he's got a strong swing, bang, bang, bang. Is that still what you're looking for, or did you have some questions on something else? What's the experience difference between the two there? Frustration and, right. he's going to look at that and go, they know me. They know me. And what it is it's pulling that unstructured data that is not sitting in a database, but is attached to Kendall, and can feed that back to somebody in real time so that they can best service him. Personalized service, right? So it may stuff in there like, I don't know, what's your sign? Are you a Virgo? Are you a Leo? Whatever. Anything to create that personal touch is what you need to do. If all of that is just sitting in disparate systems that I, as an employee, don't have access to, or it's cumbersome for me to access, I'm not going to do it. And I'm not going to create the best experience for Kendall. When we talk about spend here, it's an interesting one. So nearly 50% of the organizations, there's a chart after this, so we'll flip to it here in a second, but nearly 50% of organizations are going to increase their spend anywhere between 11 to 50% in this space, right? We talk about the platform because that's what we are. We're that middleware data consolidation and business outcome company, right? But they're gonna be spending it in a lot of other places as well. When you look at all these different vertical markets, in this space right here, you see there's a lot of uptick in spend. But there's also cost efficiencies that go along with that. The cost efficiencies come down to, better customer experience, increased revenues, but you can also start consolidating a lot of these 15 to 25 different applications, because you find very quickly when you put in a middleware platform like this, a CPaaS, a communications platform in the middle, you find out real quick where you've got duplication in your systems. Because you're gonna feed all that data into one entry point and go, I've got the same thing 6 times here. I don't need all of that. So they may increase their spend in some areas, but it allows them to save in others while making them much more efficient and approachable. I promised not to go heavy on our product side, so I'm gonna gloss over some of our stuff specifically and just keep it more neutral in the conversation here. But these are the things that anybody needs to be concerned with when you start talking about middleware and consolidating all of this data into one. Data integrity is absolutely at the core of this, is maintaining that data integrity. Again, you can't necessarily manage it if you don't have visibility to it, right? So data integrity, you now create that single source of truth. But you're not just creating the single source of truth from the structured data. It's the unstructured data that you need to have a single source of truth on. And in my opinion, I think the unstructured data is far more powerful when you're interfacing with a consumer, because you are capturing more of the essence of who they are as opposed to just account number, spend, address, just the regular data points that doesn't make me feel special, right? When I call in, I want that personalized approach, bless you. Compliance is another one. Being that we have entered into a global environment, working from Cincinnati, you are now global. You need to make sure that you have global compliance, because the way things work here are not the way they work in Europe or in Asia Pac or others. So as you're considering these things and you're bringing all of this together into one single source of truth, make sure that it is compliant and secure. Obviously that is part of what we do, so plug for us, right? But when looking at other things, that is something that you absolutely want to take into consideration. We hit on this over and over again, and I purposefully bring it up more and more, because people don't talk about unstructured data. They really don't. They don't talk about the conversational piece of it. And it goes beyond just the conversation. So, Kendall and I, we get talking back and forth about golf. He's gonna have some emotion behind what he says. There's gonna be a sentiment there, right? Like if we're having a conversation on the phone, we capture all of that. We transcribe all of that. I don't know if anybody's had the bad court reading, right? The stenographer's like, let me read that back for you, and they read it in the wrong tone. You're like, no, it wasn't said like that. No, that wasn't the right sentiment, right? This type of technology now will actually listen to the tone of your voice. If it's a chat, it will read the words. But with voice, when we're transcribing things, it's like, I just want to pay my bill. Pretty calm, right? I'm sorry, what was your name? Laura. So Laura just wants to pay her bill. But if Laura calls me and says, I just want to pay my bill. When it's transcribed, it looks exactly the same. When there's sentiment put behind it, it's going to flag it and go, Laura's not happy about something, right? So we're going to take that unstructured data and then filter that through the system and help us make a business decision right then and there, right? Okay, you know what, we need to take care of you because we have obviously done something to upset you. Let's get it taken care of. It can flag it for a manager instantaneously, right? That's what you can do in real time. That's utilizing the AI. I had to bring up AI at some point, right? That's utilizing the AI behind the scenes to take real-time, unstructured data and feed it back to the organization to get resolution right then and there. Again, going back 29 years ago when I first started selling call centers, the things that we would measure on were time to resolution. Okay? It's always about time to resolution on these sort of things. How much wrap-up time did they have? And those times were pretty extensive in certain cases. And utilizing this real-time unstructured data and being able to pull it in from all these disparate sources and make that decision right then and there, it takes what could have been, Laura, we're gonna call you back in a couple of days. And the whole time you're stewing, right? You're like, just wanted to pay the bill, just let me pay the bill. You're escalating. Or if it is right then and there and it's like, hey, we apologize, it looks like we transposed a couple of numbers, let's get you taken care of, done, all of a sudden it's diffused, right? And it could have gone from, up to here, but instead it's, hey, you know what, we had resolution. For one, I truly believe it's not a big deal if shit goes wrong, because it goes wrong from time to time. What bothers me is the response or lack of response. That is typically driven by lack of information. So taking a platform that you can pull everything into, and again, like if Laura has signed up and said, I'm gonna give you access to my social media feeds as well, right? If she's on there and she's going at, Joe's Barbecue Shop, bang, all of a sudden whatever you said flows right into my organization and flags in real time that we need to give her a response. It could be a thank you very much for your great review. It could have been oh my God, we are so sorry. But you get resolution right then and there. There is an example of this. This one was actually not our product, but I do love to use it all the time because it's near and dear to my heart. Delta Airlines. I fly Delta to a fault. I will take multiple connections just to stay on Delta because I've been flying them forever. They actually had an issue where a family had been bumped from a flight. And it was the vacation that they had been planning for forever, months and months, I'm sure. The wife was so upset, she gets on social media at Delta, just blast. It's actually made the news. You can look this one up. So it actually happened. Blast these guys, like you ruined our family vacation. I've got, I can't remember, like 3 kids screaming over here and I'm gonna be stuck in this airport forever, da-da-da. They picked up on it like that because they were listening to all channels. And what happened was they were able to go at Delta, they saw their name, was able to go to the flight manifesto and go, that's Jane Doe. We have Jane Doe's contact information because they filled it all out. What are we gonna do? We are gonna get this over to our customer service team, immediately escalate it, and minutes after she had posted that, they called her, and what did they say? We have already rebooked you on another flight. You just need to get your tush down to gate A35. If you would like to keep that flight, great. If not, we have other options, but we've already rebooked you. What do you think her next thing was? Well, after they got on the flight. Gets on the same social media, at Delta, you saved our family vacation. Greatest thing in the world. And it was the New York Times or the Washington Post or somebody that picked up that story because it was pretty bad review the first time. But then within minutes, it was resolved because of using a CX platform like this. If they didn't have a CX platform that was listening to all channels, they would still be sitting in Sioux City, Iowa, or wherever they were when they got bumped, right? So when we talk about getting rid of the redundant tech stacks and elevating organizational capabilities, you think that elevated the capabilities of Delta by being able to do that? Hell yeah, it did, right? And you know that we've got a customer for life there. I won't get into this a whole lot other than like when we start talking about the different channels, these are far different channels than we used to talk about when we talk about interfacing with our customers. Half of these I have to ask my 20-year-old children, like, what is that one? What is it? But we're listening to all of these. So within the platform, ours and many others, they're not listening to just like these social media ones. There's hundreds of channels, many of which like I had no idea about. But out there monitoring all of that at all times. And ultimately it's about this. It's about the business outcome. Providing a good quality business outcome at the moment it happens, not later. That's what customer experience is all about. So this is the last slide and then I'll wrap it up. Again, when we talk about customer experience and that sort of thing, people immediately go into like contact center or call center. That is at the root of these platforms. But that is what this used to be. That sales or service agent that was taking the calls. You know, it's what we all think. They're sitting at a desk and they've got 3 monitors and they're just pounding away with a headphone on. Yeah, it does still exist. And we do feed that information over to these individuals. But now we've turned it around and we're also feeding information back to who? The customer themselves in real time that is actionable and creates a good positive business outcome. The IT manager, so everything in our platform is API first, meaning it's open source. We can connect all of the stuff into it. So when you talk about 15 or 20 systems trying to plug them all into each other, just get the one translator in the middle, plug them into that, and it spits out the single source of truth. But it's great for the IT staff because now that becomes their single source of truth. Going down. The manager. And the manager can be whatever. It can be a sales manager, it can be a customer service manager, whoever manages a team of people. Employees leave organizations oftentimes because they're having a bad experience themselves. If the customer's having a bad experience and they take it out on the manager's team, then the manager's team gets disgruntled, they want to leave, and then the next call, they're not as chipper as they should be, right? So a manager, it gives them the information to be able to manage their team. You know, one of my favorite sayings, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, right? And this, again, takes all of the data, all of the results, both structured and, again, in my opinion, more importantly, the unstructured data, puts it together in a format that you hand to the manager. Now they have tools. They have things to work with that they can then manage their team. And then finally, at the C-level, there is so much pressure at the C-level. CMOs. CMOs are actually the number one people that we talk to when we talk about this platform. Chief marketing officers are the ones that are being tasked with creating the experience for each consumer out there in going in with their business. And then it's IT, how do we enable it and empower it and all that sort of thing. Chief revenue officer oftentimes gets involved in that, but they're just like, let's just hit the numbers, let's hit the numbers. But the chief marketing officer is the one creating and tailoring the experience. And the CEO is the one that is ultimately responsible for ensuring that that gets pulled off in the end. So that's all I've got on these. I'll pause there. Any questions whatsoever about Kendall's golf game? Is he a slicer, a hooker? Slice. See, you and me, right there. Any questions?
So you see this more as a BI tool, or is it something that's built into the BI tool will use as well?
You will feed from a BI tool into this. So if you're using Power BI, for example, we take data from Power BI, because we're a Power BI shop. And then you'll feed that information into this to then present. So you've got a nice, pretty GUI interface at the end of the day that we as the employees get to interface with. And it's going to look a little bit different for a salesperson versus a customer service rep, but all of that BI information is going to feed into this tool. Yes.
So my question is on thank you. Customization. So I assume you're able to customize your product for each customer and the client that you have. But how much is the client, how much control do they have over the system? Do their developers go in the back end and do their edits and do APIs and stuff? Or is that mainly your team that does that?
Yeah, great question. So as far as customization is concerned, when we first built it, Brandon, what was the term we used? It's Legos?
Yeah, Legos.
Legos, when we're building out the system. So it is fully customizable from day one. It is not the type of system that you just pull out and start plugging in. But we go through a whole discovery phase of what are all the 15 to 20 applications we need to bring in, and we start customizing. We will work with the customer to do the initial setup. Ultimately, we would love to hand the reins over to you pretty much completely, but we will do as much of it as you want as far as ongoing. Most of the customers on this, they're already familiar with all their APIs, and so they're the ones plugging it in. So they get a new one, they can just plug it in. They don't need us for that ongoing. But again, we're happy to do it for those that don't want to take that on.
Is it generally as a service though? You stay as a service, but they have full control?
That is correct. So it is completely as a service. So we refer to it as, we go back and forth on this. It's a CPaaS platform, a communications platform as a service. We have termed UCXM, my goodness, but Unified Customer Experience Management Tool. So unifying all the different sources for customer management. But yes, full management is available to you. You can customize it any which way you want, but it is an ongoing service that we provide. Yep, you bet.
All right, well, thank you very much, Scott. Thank you all for attending.
There you go. All right. Woo! Thank you, everybody.